Good morning. It's Sunday the 3rd of March. It's a cold, frosty start for me as I head south again to a place called Fordingbridge, which is right on the join of Hampshire, Wiltshire and Dorset. Today I'm going on a trail half marathon up on the Downs. Come with me.
Isn't that fantastic? That was evil. Got all tingly. Where's this? Can I finish? More bog. You find out what you're made of. Frying bacon.
It is a beautiful day here this morning. Bremore House we are, as I say, halfway between Salisbury in Wiltshire, Ringwood in Hampshire, and we're just 3 miles from the Dorset borders. I have a choice of different shoes. I have my Park Claws and my Welshes, and we'll see which one works. But that is just looking gorgeous, isn't it?
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're ready to start the half marathon. Get set, go! So the race starts in the grounds of Bremore House, which was built in 1582, or started building in 1582, so Elizabethan manor house just after King Henry VIII. But just in front of the house is an amazing yew tree, this one here, which they say is 1,000 years old. So the first kilometre or so is a beautiful climb up through Bremore Wood. I say beautiful, the view is beautiful. The climb up the hill wasn't so beautiful. Still ice on the puddles. Now up here is what the guidebooks refer to as a grassy knoll. And as well as all the yew trees that are around here, there's a thing called the Miz Maze. In there through the trees is this Miz Maze. A maze is an inaccurate word. It's actually a labyrinth. It's one continuous convoluted journey to get from the outside to a little mound in the centre. It's probably medieval, and the suggestion is that monks would have crawled around it on their knees. It's made of turf, meditation or for penance. 800-year-old labyrinth just behind those trees, and we all ran past it and nobody knew. Now if you weren't looking, you'd missed it. There's a little ditch up here. It's called Grim's Ditch. Now you may have seen other places in the country also called Grim's Ditch, or possibly Grim's Dyke, and their names all come from the same derivation. I'll explain more about that a bit later, because we cross it another twice. It's actually 14 miles long and about 2,000 years old. Just to the right of me here is a wood, and it's called Great Yews, after yew trees. I'll just get through this muddy bit. Yeah, this wood is called Great Yews. As we saw from the yew tree at Bremore House, it was 1,000 years old. Yew trees live for a very long time. There are more than 500 churchyards in the UK where the yew tree in the churchyard is older than the church itself. That's quite a thought. So what's the connection with churchyards? Well, yew trees have always had spiritual links in many mythologies and many religions. But some say that it's because the roots of the yew used to purify the souls of the sinners who were buried in the churchyard. And others just say it was much more simply to stop farmers grazing their livestock in the graveyards, because yew is very poisonous to livestock. I think we've just passed Grim's Dyke or Grim's Ditch again. I say Grim's Dyke or Grim's Ditch because you may have seen in other parts of the country things that call themselves Grim's Dyke or Grim's Ditch. and they all have their origin in the same place. So what is that? Well, as I say, they're ditches, and you dig out the ditch and the spoil, you form a bank on the other side, used to demarcation of territory predominantly, I think. And the old Viking word, because that's where they came from, is DIC. Now, depending on what part of Europe those Anglo-Saxons came from, when they tried to pronounce that word, some people pronounce it as Deek, which is where the word dike comes from, and some people pronounce it as Deech, D-I-C, Deech, which is where the word ditch comes from. Isn't that interesting?
To 240. Then I have 5 pints. Do help yourself if you want any sugar.
Oh, I'm good, thank you. So 5.2 miles, first aid station. So this is that Grimm's ditch again. It's now the 3rd time we've crossed it. So you understand why it's called dike or ditch. What about Grimm? Grimm was a popular Danish name, old Danish name, so it was probably a Viking name. But the Anglo-Saxons who came after them, about 2,000 years ago, they were terrified of the Vikings. Anything scary was kind of grim. There's a wonder, is that where the word grim comes from? And also because Vikings had their horns, they made them, thought they were devil-like as well. So anything that was devilish or scary often had an Anglo-Saxon handle of grim. There you go. 6.5 miles, and we've turned, we're now heading south, as you can tell, into the sun, and we're now going to head down across Whitsbury Downs and past some racehorse gallops. These free draining chalk downlands, very popular with racehorse trainers, an all-weather exercise track here. Thank you. I say racehorse training, very popular around here. In fact, the very famous Gold Cup winner Desert Orchid was trained on Whitsbury Downs. Second aid station, and that's the back of the grassy knoll with the maze on it. And even though you can't see it, up there is a thing called the Giant's Grave Long Barrow, and it's like the burial mounds that we see. This is a big one, 100 metres long, 20 metres wide, several metres high. You'll see these long barrows, as they're called, all over the country, particularly in these chalk areas. They've usually got a name like Giant's Grave or something like that. Mass burial sites, and possibly places of worship or spiritual importance or sacrifice. This long climb is bringing us up to Whitsbury Fort, which is an Iron Age fort, so 1500, 2,500 years ago, something like that. You can't actually see the fort anymore. What you can see is the ditches where it was, and the flat land where the fort was. And it's all in here. If you look at it on a map, it's really clear. But the fact that there's an Iron Age fort just the other side of these trees is magic. Now it's a very nice stud farm for racehorses. We're now coming down into the village of Whitsbury, which, like I said before, is a village built around racing, horse racing. And you'll have heard of the bookmaker William Hill. When he was a real person, and he lived and is buried here in Whitsbury. He had a stud farm here too. We're just coming down to the village of Rockbourne, which, even though it was mentioned in the Doomsday Book, you may say, oh, been here 1,000 years, that's good. If you look at the map, there's enough barrows and tumuli around here to indicate that people were actually living here 5,000 years before that. So 6,000 years people have been grubbing out a living on this piece of land. Looks like we've gone the wrong way, even though we saw runners' footprints down here. I don't think we're the first. Hey ho! Back up again.
It's such a long cut off, it wouldn't come hunting for a while.
So just been running with Tessa, who interestingly comes from my neck of the woods. Grew up in sort of Suffolk, Essex area, and now lives in the New Forest. And we are partners in getting lost together. Not far from here, and never mind your 1,000-year-old Doomsday Book, there's a 1,700-year-old Roman villa just over that away. And so far they've uncovered 70 different rooms, some with mosaics and many with underfloor heating. Impressive, isn't it? Third aid station, 12 miles, but then we have got a bit lost. So it's a final climb up through Whitsbury Woods. I'm just stuffed in a Snickers. We've got 1.5, 2 miles maybe, 2 or 3k left to go, and hopefully then a bit of downhill. Now that's just mean. If you've enjoyed this video, do give it a like. Helps YouTube share it with more runners and it makes me feel good. Thank you. And oh dear. If you like what you see, feel free to subscribe, and then it means you won't miss a thing. Hit the notifications bell and you'll get an email the next time I do a video. What is the next video going to be? A good question. So I was supposed to be doing the Dam Busters 10 miler and Derwent Reservoir. Sorry, this is so muddy. Derwent Reservoir, but that's had to be cancelled. I'm going to go up there anyway. So the end of March, I've picked my own route, about 10 or 11 miles around the Ladybower Reservoir, which is the next door one to Derwent. Also involved in Dam Busters training, and nearer to where my accommodation is. So I'm going to do an 11-mile-ish run around Ladybower Reservoir, and I hope you'll be able to join me on that one. Right, see if we can get some running done. I bet this will be an absolute sea of bluebells in a few weeks' time. By the time we get to April, it'll be amazing to walk through here. So this barn here on these concrete mushrooms, do you know what they were for? You probably do. That was to raise the barn above the level of the ground so the rats couldn't get in to eat the grain, because the rats couldn't climb up and over the top of the mushrooms they'd fall off. So yeah, anti-rat device. Here we go, up on the downs, done. Just shy of 3 hours. But average heart rate 155. I think that's fair for a half marathon. I don't want to be doing it any more than that. And yeah, there was definitely plenty of ups. Beautiful part of the world. Next run, completely opposite direction. We're going north, as I said, up to the Peak District. And then the end of April, I'm going all the way up to Balmoral in Scotland, near Aberdeen in the Cairngorms, and we'll do the 15-mile run round there. So we've got some fabulous runs coming up. Thanks ever so much for joining me. I'll be delighted if you felt like joining me on another run and learning interesting things about places to run.
and I will see you soon, I hope. Right, back to the car and see if we can get out of this car park.